Hello.
Hi, Archie. How are you?
Hello.
Can you see me?
妈妈那个线，那条线哦。Hello. Did you hear me?
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you fix your camera? Okay, I see just the little top of your head. Did you have a good time at your grandma and grandpa's house?
Yes. I wear my school uniform.
Good. Are you wearing your school uniform right now?
Yes.
Nice. You look very nice, very handsome. Well, we are in the middle of this book. Do you have yours ready?
Yes.
Okay. Magic Treehouse, Midnight on the Moon.
Night on the moon.
Yes. I will go ahead and share my screen. Would you like to go to the moon?
Yes.
You would?
If I could. If I could, I wish I could go there.
That would be pretty exciting.
Yes. That will be very, very exciting.
I wonder how long it takes to get to the moon on a spaceship. Do you know the answer to that?
I know. Maybe 6 to 8 hours.
Okay. 6 to 8 hours. Well, sometimes we have to be on an airplane for longer than 6 to 8 hours, so it might feel like a quick trip.
Yes, the longest that I ever do is 12 to 13. 12 to 13 hours.
Now, do you remember where you were going?
Africa?
Africa?
Yes, it is. It's New York.
Oh, okay. I thought that maybe.
And it is 16 hours. 16 hours.
That's a long time. I bet you wondered if you are ever going to get there. Okay, we are on chapter 2. This is called Space Motel. Now,
and I read all of this. I read all of this book.
I know, but you have to remember that we are sharing this video that you and I do. I call it Reading with Archie. And we share it with other people who have not heard the story. So we do not want them to find out what is going to happen, okay? So we cannot give it away. Deal?
Deal.
That's a hard deal to make, I think. What I want to show you,
Yes.
I want to show you this word. Now, there's another word that looks almost like it.
Hotel.
That's right.
Hotel.
Yeah. So they are almost the same thing, but a little bit different. Okay.
Yes.
A hotel is fancier than a motel. So a hotel it's the fanciest. If you go to a hotel, then there will be more services that you can get, maybe a restaurant, maybe I don't know. I probably need to research exactly what is the difference between a motel and a hotel. But a motel is less expensive usually. Sometimes a motel, you can just drive your car right up to the door of your room. You don't need to go inside and find an elevator and go to a floor and walk down the hallway and find your room. Instead, you can drive your car right up to the door of your room, park your car, step out and then turn the key and go right inside your room. A motel does not usually have
Oh, I know how it.
like a restaurant. It might give you, you know, a cup of coffee and a muffin in the morning, but not really a place to sit down and order breakfast or lunch or dinner. So, but this is called a space motel. All right, let's see what happens. Now remember
Jack opened his eyes. He looked out of the window.
Yeah.
The wind starts to blow. The treehouse starts to spin. It spun faster and faster and faster. Then everything was silent.
Absolutely silent.
Absolutely silent. As quiet as still as silent could be.
That's right.
They are on the moon. They are on the moon.
So here, when they open their eyes,
They are on the moon.
figure out where they are. They don't know that yet. Jack opened his eyes. He looked out the window. The treehouse had landed inside a large white room. What kind of training place is this? Asked Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Do you think that they think they're on the moon?
No, they think they are just on the training place.
Training place, right. The room was round. Okay, we usually think of a room as a box, right, with 4 walls. This room was like a circle. It was round. It had
I know.
It had no.
I have something to give you to see.
Okay.
Yeah, inside this.
Oh, you found your book, and that is a diagram. Do you remember I said to you that, let me see.
Yes.
Where was that? Where was that word? I think it was right here. Yeah. Remember I said that today we're going to look back at this word diagram. You just showed us a picture of it. Yeah, so we're going to see that in just a minute. So the room was round. It had no windows. It had white floors and a curved wall lit by bright lights. Hello, Annie called.
No one replied.
Yeah, there was no answer.
There was no answer.
Where
Where were all the astronauts in spacesuits? Jack wondered. There's nobody here, said Annie. How do you know? Said Jack. I just feel it, said Annie. We'd better find out where we are, said Jack.
Okay, hang on, my turn, and then I'll let you take over again. There was no answer. Where were all the astronauts and space scientists? Jack wondered. There's nobody here, said Annie. How do you know? Said Jack. I just feel it, said Annie. We had better find out where we are, said Jack. Now, Archie, I'm going to let you keep reading in just a minute, but before you do that, I want to show just a couple of things here. A difference between Magic Treehouse and Geronimo Stilton. Geronimo Stilton is a harder book, and so the vocabulary or the words that the author uses will be harder, more advanced. I want you to notice that here the author says said, 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 and said, okay? When we were reading Geronimo Stilton, that author loved to come up with other words that mean said. And something that is really special about that is that the author can, if the author is good at coming up with other words that mean said, the author can give you clues about what kind of person that character is. For example, some of the ways that the author did said for Geronimo, she used words like stammered, or he, I think the author is a he, stammered and stuttered. Do you remember what stammered and stuttered mean?
Yes and no.
What do they mean?
They mean like
Want me to give an example? I will give an example.
Yes.
You tell us. An example would be if I say, what are we gonna do now? That's stammering and stuttering. So what do I do if I'm talking like that? I'm taking the first sound or the beginning sound of the word, and I'm having trouble saying it. I just say it again and again and again before I can say the whole word. Why would a person be stammering or stuttering? What does it tell us about a character who has trouble saying the whole
They are scared.
They're scared or nervous, right? And so Geronimo is a person who is very nervous. And the way that the author can tell us that, a clue that the author can give us, is to, instead of using the word said, use words like stammered and stuttered, because those mean that Geronimo is nervous or scared when he's talking, or they could mean that. But remember swift pause. That is supposed to be Geronimo's best friend and partner, right?
Yeah.
But the words that the author would use for when swift pause is talking are words like this. There was 3 that I remember that began with the SN blend. One was sneered. One was snickered. One was, let me see if I can remember these. There's 3, sneered, snickered, and snorted. And then there was an SC one, which was scoffed. And these words, sneered, snickered, snorted, and scoffed, are a way of talking when you're actually making fun of the other person in kind of a mean way. It's sort of laughing at the other person in a way that's mean. You're making fun of them. So we would say, if we look, if the word said for swift pause was that swift pause sneered, snickered, snorted, or scoffed, that's a clue for us that tells us that swift pause is kind of a bit mean, right? He's not really being a very nice friend. And so we can see that a word we could use to describe swift pause is mean, and our evidence, that's the clues. That's the things that happen in the story that a character does or a character says or how the character says it, that gives us proof about what kind of person that character is. So we can say that swift pause is mean. What's our evidence? That the author uses these words, sneered, snickered, snorted, and scoffed, as how he's talking to his friend. With Geronimo, we can say that he's nervous or scared because the author uses words like stammered and stuttered instead of just saying said, right? If the author wants to say that someone is talking with great excitement and loudly, they can say shouted or yelled or screamed. So it's a great trick when you're writing a story to come up with a different word than said that helps us know how the character is saying it. because that gives a clue about what kind of person that character is. That's the evidence for what that character is like. It's a good clue, but that's sort of for harder books. And this is an easier book. And so in this book, the author mostly just says, said, 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 and said. But one thing the author is practicing here is showing us, let me see if I can do my line, the margin. Okay, so let me put my margin right here. There's the margin, right? Like that. So now we can see where the indent is. Okay, so what color should I use? I'll use orange. So there's an indent here, 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 here. And remember that the author needs to start a new paragraph every time someone new is talking. So because here it's Annie talking, and then Jack is talking, and then Annie is talking, and then Jack is talking. So every time the character who's talking changes, the author needs to start a new paragraph. And that's why we have so many indents in a row. In fact, it can be hard, a little bit hard to count all the paragraphs because there are so many. Okay, it is your turn to keep reading. So I'm going to let you start. Do you want to read?
He looked at the page in the moon book. He read the words below the picture of the dome. A moon base was built on moon in the year 2031. The top of the dome slides open to let spacecraft enter and leave. Oh man, Jack whispered. What's wrong? Said Annie.
Okay, hang on. Before we turn the page, there's something I want to show you here. Let me take our margin and slide it all the way down here. Okay. And I want you to see how this part right here does not go up against the margin, and it does not even go up against the indent, right? If we look at where the indent is, let me use this here for the indent. That's interesting. It doesn't seem like it's very lined up very well. Well, anyway, that yellow line would be where the indent is. And you can see that right here, there's a lot of space between the indent line and where that is. And that's because this part is, the author is showing us a little piece of writing from the book, from their book, okay? So this is not Jack and Annie talking. This is their reading. Jack is reading a piece of the page from the book that he has on the moon. And in that, it's telling us facts about the moon. So the story of Jack and Annie is fiction. It's a fiction story. But in these little, this is called an excerpt. This is an excerpt. Oops, I'm spelling excerpt wrong. This is an excerpt from a book. And in the book, which is telling us about the moon, this would be information. Oh, Miss Camp's wrong, because I thought this was going to be fact, and it does sound like fact, but let's look at what it says. It says a moon base was built on the moon in the year 2031. Are we in the year 2031?
No, we are on the year 2021.
Okay, so we're in the year 2021. So has 2031 already happened?
No.
No, so is it in the past, already happened, or is it in the future, not happened yet?
Future.
If it's in the future and it hasn't happened, can we say that this is a fact? A fact is something that is definitely true.
Nope, that is not a fact.
That's right. So the author is pretending this is a fact of the future. She's pretending that they have gone into the future as though 2031 has already happened. So they have to be going into the future past 2031 maybe 2032, 2033. And then this book would say, in the past, in 2031, which already happened, a moon base was built on the moon. So they must have arrived on the moon after 2031.
So at 2031, the astronauts will go to there to build a moon base. Is it true?
No, not in our real life, it's not true. But in this fiction book, okay, remember this book is just pretend, but in this book, the author is saying that when Annie and Jack go into the future after the year 2031, what they read about, so what would be true in their world is that yes, in 2031, astronauts went to the moon and built a moon base. So for them, it's a fact. For them, they're reading. Yeah, but it's not a fact for them because they're predicting it will happen. It's a fact for them because in this book, they are arriving in the future after 2031, and the book is telling them what already happened. It's a fact because it's already happened, because 2031 has now become their past. That's kind of confusing, isn't it? But if we woke up tomorrow, if we got in a time machine and we went someplace and learned that it was 2035, okay, you'd be 14 years older than you are right now. So how old are you right now?
7.
7. Okay, so in 14 years, do you know how old you would be?
40 years.
Well, not quite. It'd be 21. So if you and I went in a time machine and we got out and we learned that it was the year 2035, and you were 21 years old, and you were reading a book and it said, in the year 2031, they built a moon base on the moon, that means it would have already happened because we have landed in 2035. 2031 would have been 4 years earlier. So then we could say for sure it happened because it already happened. Why? Because we got there after that. It's really tricky. If we go to 2035, that's the future, but in 2035, what's the past? 2031 would be in the past. Right now we're in 2021, so 2031 hasn't happened yet. It's our future. But if we were in 2035,
2031 is 10 years
from now.
Maybe 10 years from now.
That's right. So it's in our future. It hasn't happened yet.
It is. If I go to 2031, I'm 17 years old.
That's true. That's true. So what's interesting though is Jack and Annie do not seem to have aged 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. They seem to all of a sudden be the same age of, is it 7 and 8, I think? So they did not seem to get older. But if you are in the year, if you go into the future past the year 2031, like if you go in 2035 or 2041 or 2051, then 2031 has already happened. So that becomes your past. But for us, it's not the past. It hasn't happened yet because we are in 2021, okay? If you're talking about the past and you say what happened, then that is a fact because it already happened and you can say, yes, it happened. So if you are in the future past, beyond, later than 2031, then you could write down things that happened in 2031 and say, this is a fact. It really happened in 2031. It already is done. But we can't do that because 2031 hasn't happened yet. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So they read this and they have to realize that they have gone into the future and they've gone into the future after 2031. That's the only way this would make sense because this book is written like it's fact, which means it had to have already happened, which means they have to be past 2031. And that's what Jack is figuring out. That's why he says, oh man, okay? let's see. And it tells us a little bit about what the moon base looks like. So a moon base is kind of like a little house, a little building. And it says the top, it says it's the way it looks is a dome. Okay, a dome is kind of like if you took an egg and you cut it in half, that would be a dome. It's like a flat bottom, but then the top of it looks like the top half of an egg. And it also, like that diagram, okay? And then it says the top will slide open so that spacecrafts can enter and leave. So pretty fancy. All right, we are going to turn the page here.
Dome like this.
Like this. Okay. So
Like
this here, right here, I think should look more flat. Okay, they kind of make it look round, but I think this should look more flat. But what makes it a dome?
like this. Dome.
Yes, exactly like that. Yeah. What makes it a dome is that this top part is round. Okay. And somehow their treehouse is right in the middle of it. Their treehouse kind of came in. So this part that says rocket entry right here, that can, the roof, the ceiling can slide open, and then the rocket or the spaceship can come in and land. Well, for them, their treehouse came in and landed. And because it landed, this here is called the landing chamber. Okay, so this is where they're going to find themselves. When they get out of their treehouse, they're going to find themselves right here. And then they will go investigate. Investigate is when you are going to look for clues, you will explore, you will try to answer some questions and figure things out. So they, I think, will end up going this way. So, but right now they have to figure out that they are in the future and that they are on the moon. So they don't actually know right now when it is or where it is. They need to figure out when is it, and they need to figure out where they are. That would be the setting. The setting of the story is when and where, okay? And they don't know. They don't know where they've landed. They haven't figured out yet that they are in the future. But I think Jack is figuring it out from what he just read. So Annie and Jack looked at Peanut. The mouse was running around in circles. Poor Peanut, said Annie. She tried to pick the mouse up, but Peanut hid behind the mango on the letter M. Maybe she's nervous about being on the moon, said Annie. She's not the only one, said Jack. He let out a deep breath. Then he pushed his glasses into place. How did they figure out that they were on the moon here? That's page 14. And this is page, oh, because I skipped a whole page. And you said, I'm thinking to myself, how did they figure out they're on the moon? I don't think they knew that yet. And that's because I skipped, we were on page 12 and I skipped to page 14. So let's go back. Let's go back and read page 13 and then we will be done for today.
I don't want to read page 13.
You don't? All right, I will, because I want to just read it and then we're going to be done for today. So Annie says to him, what's wrong? Jack's heart pounded with excitement. That's like boom, 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 boom. He could hardly speak. We've landed inside a moon base, he said. So, said Annie. So the moon base is on the moon, said Jack. Annie's eyes widened, right? That's like, oh, we're on the moon. I want you to remember that when an author makes just one word in italics, okay, italics,
We're
keep the letters so they look
moon.
all over. Yeah, so you kind of stretch out that word and say it more slowly, not necessarily louder, but more slowly, like you're pulling it apart. So she would say, we're on the moon, she asked. Jack nodded. The book says the moon base was built in the year 2031, he said. So this book was written after that, right? We have to make sure with the italics that we say it, pull it apart, stretch it out, which means this book is from the future. Oh, wow, said Annie. Morgan must have gone forward in time, that's into the future, to borrow it from a future library. Right, said Jack. And now we're in the future on the moon. So this is where he figures out that they are, that's the when in the future. Oops, the green doesn't show up very well, does it? And on the moon, that's the where, that's the place, okay? We can say that the where is the place, and we can say that the when is the time. And together, the time and place makes the setting of the story. So they are in the future on the moon. One thing I want to show you is sometimes when we're doing a time travel story and where they are, or rather when they are, changes, it's helpful for us to have a little timeline. And a timeline is when we make a line. That's this part. And we put the time on it, or the year, okay? So let's say they started in 2021, and then they are reading a book that tells about what happened in 2031. If the book is telling what happened here, that means it must have already happened, and that means that they must be here, okay? If they're, we don't know when that is, but we do know that it is after, they have to be after 2031, because we need this date, we need that to be all finished so that this can become their past. This can only be the past if this is the present, right? If this is their present time, then they can say that 2031 is in their past, and the book can write down what already happened. For us, if this is our present right here, then all of that would be the future. So for them to say that 2031 is their past, they need to be somewhere beyond that, okay? And then they can look back and call 2031 their past. All right, so they hear a squeak, squeak. And this is where Annie and Jack will look at Peanut, who's running around in circles. And right here is where we are going to make our star. Now, what do you want for a color today?
Blue.
Blue? Okay. We're good. So let me go ahead and hit this. We really haven't come up with a new way to say goodbye for Magic Treehouse. Have you thought of any new way to say goodbye? All right, then it's so long. So long what? So long, Cheddar Chip. Bye, Archie.